So today we are doing law of cosines. So all of the previous tests, tests 1 through 3, all said that you needed a right triangle, but the law of cosines applies for any triangle. So it doesn't have to be a right triangle anymore. All right. So here's the deal. We're still going to use A, B, and C, but now since we don't have a right angle anymore, we're going to use a capital letter to represent the angle and a lowercase letter for the side across from it. All right, so here's how this is going to work. If we've got any triangle, I can put A, B, and C anywhere I want. So let's say that I put A here. So since it's a capital letter, it's talking about that angle. And the side across this triangle is going to be the lowercase. All right, so the angle and then across the triangle is going to be the lowercase side. So little a is this whole side, capital A is this angle. I can do the same thing again. I can put B anywhere I want. So let's put a B here. And since it's a capital letter, it's this angle. And then if I follow that across, this side across from it is going to be the lowercase b. I'm going to put a capital C here. And for me, since capital C's and lowercase c's look exactly the same, I usually put a little line under it to say it's capital. So the capital C is down there in that angle, and across the triangle is the little c, that whole side. All right, so there are two cases for when we can best use law of cosines. All right, the first one, you have two sides of a triangle and the angle in between them. All right, now when we do this, what we're trying to find is another side. And it will always tell you. Or you have all three sides and no angles, and you want to find one of the angles. All right, so you can use it either way. So there are three steps for law of cosines. All right, first step, label up your triangle. Put A, B, and C anywhere if it's not already labeled for you, but you have to be careful that your capitals and lower cases are across from each other. All right, step 2 says pick which law of cosines you want to use. So you can see there are three different ones. They're all exactly the same. The only thing is that these letters are shuffling around. All right, always choose the one. Now this one's important. I would circle it or point an arrow to it or something in your notes. Always choose the one that has the angle you have or the one that you are looking for. All right, so if it gives you angle C, you're going to use this first one. If you're trying to find angle A, you're going to use this one, or angle B, trying to find this one. All right, so based on that angle, that's which one you're going to pick. All right, and then from there on out, it is just solving. So let's check this out. So use law of cosines to find the missing side length. So the first one says find AB. So we're going to trace AB. Now look at this. Remember, we can either call it, I'm going to call it X for right now, but here's a capital C with the angle that it gave us. So across from it, this side should actually be a little c. All right, now it gave us angle C. So I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to choose the angle that it gave us. All right, it gave us angle C, so I'm going to choose this one that has cosine C in it. So this is C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2AB cosine C. All right, so across from the big A is the little a, across from the capital B is the little b, and from here it's plug and chug. We don't know what little c is, but we do know that A is 29, little b is 13, minus 2AB cosine. Now remember, this is always an angle inside a trig function, so 41. Now look at here. everything is on this side of the equation. So I can type all of that into my calculator. Or Desmos, I would use Desmos for this. You can type it in exactly the way it looks. Minus 2, 29, 13, cosine 41. All right, we're going to get c squared equals, when I typed all this into a calculator, I got 440.95. And remember, your last step, c squared, the opposite of squaring something is to take the square root. Now, since we have decimals, you can't do factor trees, so this one just gets typed into the calculator. And when I do that, I get 20.99, which rounds up to be 21. All right, so that's all it is. It is a lot of plug and chug. So let me change colors here. In this case, it gave us angle A. So here's little a. Across from the capital B is little b. Across from the capital C is little c. Since it gave us the capital A, if I back up here, you're always going to choose the one which angle it gives you. So since it gave us angle A, this time we need to choose this third guy. A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine A. And so a whole lot of plug and chug. We don't know what little a is, but I do know that little b is 21. Little c is 30 minus 2bc cosine, and your angle always goes with your trig function, so 123. Now, same deal. All of it is on the same side of the equal sign, so I can type all that in at the same time. So this is just typing it into Desmos with all the parentheses and everything else that it has. All right. So I got 2027.25. And since that's a squared, we got to take the square root. So a is the square root of 2027.25. We can't do factor trees on decimals. So if I take the square root of that, I get 45.02. I'm rounding everything to the hundredth place today. All right, so that's kind of the easiest case if you already have the side length. All right, I'm going to skip the next two problems so that we can talk about the missing angles. All right, so I'm going to start up by labeling my triangles still. So here's a capital A, so across from it is the little a. Here's capital B, across from it is little b. Here's capital C, here's little c. Now it asked us to find the measure of angle A. So it's asking for this. Now remember, anytime it either gives you an angle or tells you about an angle, that's the law of cosines that we want to use. So it wants us to find angle A, so we're going to use this last one. So let me write that out. A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine A. And if we fill in everything we know this time, look at this. Little a is 14. Little b is 9. Little c is 6. Minus 2bc cosine. And in this case, I don't know what the angle is, so I'm just going to leave it as a capital A. So let's do the bits that we can do, all right? We can do 14 squared, which is 196. We can do this bit, 9 squared plus 6 squared, which is 117. And I can even do the 2 times 9 times 6, which is 108. So minus 108. I don't know what cosine A is yet. Okay, so here's where we've got to start solving, all right? The first thing that you can always do is you can move this number here that was the blue, right? I can subtract this from both sides of the equal sign. So 196 minus 117 turns out to be 79. Now, in order to get rid of this 108, we have to divide, all right? Because this says negative 108 times cosine A. So you always divide by what's in front of the cosine. And what I'm going to suggest is let's leave it as a fraction, right? So I've got 79 over negative 108 equals cosine A. Now remember from task number 3, when you had a trig function and you didn't know the angle, we could take the inverse of both sides, which is why I said leave this as a fraction, because when we do trig inverses, it's always of a fraction. So this is really going to be A equals cosine inverse of 79 over negative 108. And again, type that into Desmos, or if you're using a calculator, that's fine too. And we get 137.01. So these are a little bit more intense because the calculator can't do all of it for you, but it's totally doable. I'm going to pause this for just a second so that you can finish copying it down. My screen is a little bit smaller. You guys have room to write over here, but I do not. So I'm going to erase this here so that we can do that next problem. All right, so again, start off by labeling your triangle. All right, across from big A is little a. Across from, oops, I'm sorry. Before we get started, there is a typo here. That 143 degrees was actually supposed to be this side length. I'm sorry, I just checked my notes. I am all messed up today. Please make BC, this side length, be 30. That angle does work, but that's not going to help us with the law of cosines. I'm sorry. So AB is 22, AC is 17, BC is 30. Please fix that on your notes. I apologize. All right, and this one asked us to find the measure of angle B. So we're going to go back to our notes, because if it asked us to find angle B, we're going to look for the angle, and this middle law of cosines is the one that we're going to use. So B squared equals A squared plus C squared minus 2AC cosine B. All right, we're going to fill in everything. Across from big B is little b, across from big C is little c, across from big A is little a. So let's fill in everything. All right, now again, we can do bits and pieces of this. 17 squared is 289. We can do this part of it where we add them together, which is 1384. And we can also do this part, the 2 times 30 times 22, which is 1320. Cosine B. Subtract out this 1384. To get negative 1095 equals negative 1320 cosine B. We're going to divide both sides by what's in front here. So divide out the negative 1320. And remember, we want to leave this one as a fraction. It's one of the very few times I'm ever going to say this. So negative 1095 over negative 1320 equals cosine B. And for the last step, we can take inverses. So B equals cosine inverse of negative 1095 over negative 1320. Calculator magic. And we get 33.95.